Any big, I'm curious, anything that's making you excited for the next year as you kind of look over this year, all the different tools, all the different projects you work on, what gets you excited about next year?
It's a good, fun thing to say is that for the first time ever, I purchased a Figma. We are kind of live now. This is what I always wanted to say. We are live.
And you're officially live.
We are officially live, exactly. I mean, this is just an experiment. All right, 2025 is almost done.
We're close.
We're very close, yeah. How was the year for you?
It was a big year. It felt like 2 years, to be fair. I felt like it was action-packed this year. A lot of stuff, working on different things. A lot of the way I work has shifted. Again, action-packed to say the least.
Yeah, so you say it feels like 2 years. Is that a good thing? Or was it as exhausting as 2 years, packed in one?
It's probably a bit of both. It was exciting and exhausting.
Right. Okay.
How about you?
Okay. Well, I mean, it's always goes by so quickly, don't you think? Like for me, the big change this year was that I really focused on my own artifacts, so my own website and profiles and that kind of stuff. And I really tried to focus on the shiny object syndrome, or staying away from it. So I really focused on, okay, this quarter I'm going to do one thing, improve or redo my website. And then the next quarter, create a course or start a podcast or something like that. Instead of doing everything 80%, the hard part comes up and then we're doing something else. So I feel like I've got a lot done this year.
That's good.
Yeah,
I feel like the theme on my side was AI this year. Regardless of how people feel about it, like that, I think that was the biggest shift for me this year. Like actively trying new tools, different workflows. Like AI was like the thread that was the continual theme throughout the entire year. I think I think the year started off with it was a vibe coding era where it was like a big boom. Everything's vibe coded. I've switched the way I've worked. So to look back to an earlier episode, I no longer wireframe because I vibe code everything now. But I think it's also a tool that I leverage within like an internal team. So it's like a communication piece. So it's both been used for like sales prototypes. So vibe coding a prototype for sales. So instead of building an actual thing or a POC, vibe code the thing. And the sales team can use that as collateral to facilitate conversations to see if there's need for a specific feature. And then also exploring ideas with the engineering team. Instead of waiting for me to sketch something in FigJam or any of the wireframing tools, like for vibe coding together. So big shift in the way I work, actually.
It sounds like perhaps the biggest shift is the shape and form a design request enters your arena, basically. So it used to be perhaps a meeting or a big wall of text. But now you get the product managers a vibe-coded prototype with a sales meeting transcript for you.
Exactly. I think I'm seeing that shift for product designers specifically. I don't know if I saw this post somewhere, but like I think someone said, we're going to become prototype makers, which is an interesting concept. So it's the idea that we're no longer staying in Figma and design. We do much more than that, the strategy part as well. But the gap between engineering and design is closing ever so more every month that goes by, I find. So I think creating a clickable thing that's very close to what's being implemented is the direction that we're going.
Right. Yeah, I see something similar, but I'm also a bit cautious. Perhaps like it feels like the design and engineering that comes together is very like in the discovery phase of design, not really in delivery. I'm curious what you think there. Like, does anything you vibe code end up being used, or is it really just, like you said, exploring, testing ideas, prototyping, and then still going back into Figma before you hand over to a developer?
Yeah, I mean the caveat or the nuance there is that we have a design system in place within like the design team and also on the code base. So it's mostly used as like an exploratory tool to kind of try different ideas, and kind of it's really quick to spin up like 3 or 4 different varying ideas really quickly.
Yeah.
But in the end, it's really like it ends with a Figma file that's dev ready, and that kind of that's there.
Mm.
But I feel like that with like some of the tools like MCP, like all the different tools that are coming about, that what that handoff process look like is going to be a bit different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Especially, I don't know if you've seen the new release for Cursor,
I
but
have. Yes.
they have a visual editor, which is I haven't dug into detail of what that means, but it seems like designers may be able to hop on and use Cursor. And instead of hand coding it, they would basically drag and drop similar to Figma or Webflow. And then there's an agent in the background making sure that the code that it spit out is not run with like extra lines of code that are useless, which is
Mm.
interesting if that's the case.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very interesting feeling watching that announcement video. It's just a 2-minute clip, but still they
Mm.
showed it in action. One part of me is super excited about it, but then the other one had the second half of me has tons of questions. Because it looks very front end heavy.
Mm-hmm.
Does it work for for example, on one of my projects, I worked on something around tokens and them, a token being expired and having to check and validate. And what if there's an error, like all sorts of edge cases. Like it doesn't really happen on the front end. Like you cannot drag what happens except for maybe a
Yeah.
warning that you see or a success message. There's a lot of, performance focused, like back-end stuff going on. That
True.
that requires knowledge and you thinking about like what's best, what's secure, all that kind of stuff. So I'm very curious, like how does it work there? Like maybe you don't need to go into that Cursor front end Figma like editor just to do that type of work, but it is related. So I'm eager to try it out, but I wouldn't say skeptical. I think that's too negative, but I'm cautious to not overhype it too much. I'm more of a let's see for myself type person. I like to test run things
Of course.
before. Yeah. So that's what I'm thinking. But I think it's a very symbolic end of the year. Them announcing something like this. It really shows you what 2025 was all about. Bringing things closer together. Design, engineering, product managers, and designers. Yeah, and at the same time, I think we have to embrace that change. You don't have to believe everything. You don't have to be like a super fan about it. But 2025 also was about letting go of the old ways, I think.
Yeah, I
And,
think so.
looking at some communities and certain posts online, social media, some people are really holding on to the way it's always been. And I'm not sure if that's the smartest play, to really hold on. What do you think?
Yeah, I think if you want to classify 2025, I think it might be the year of experimentation.
Mm-hmm.
Like to your point, the skepticism I don't think is valuable. I think you should be trying these different tools, regardless if you incorporate them into your workflow or not.
Yeah.
But we saw leaps and bounds, like the tools evolve over time. I don't know if you felt that as well. How the image creation, like how robotic and how non-human realistic things were to where they are today, where like my friends can't even tell. I mean, you can tell a bit if you're really, because you've been paying attention, but you can't really tell anymore. Next year is going to be very interesting because I think following the theme of experimentation, adoption is probably going to be the big theme of 2026.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's very interesting. There's a very important nuance there is you can see when an image is AI, not because of the quality, but because of the style, the art direction it uses. So when I go into my local grocery store, they have this ad like printed on a poster on the front door, like, hey, we're looking for a new store manager. And you can see the color scheme and like the blurry background, like that's like basic AI. Like if you prompt without really thinking about it, it's just the image you get. Like, hey, give me an image of a thumbs up store manager. Like you get the same image, and that's something you recognize. But it's not because you see 6 fingers, or a strange text mess up anymore. Yeah. So I mean, that's how you can spot it. But with a little bit of better prompting, you will not spot it anymore. I also think this year is about people not being ashamed of AI anymore. I started this year really about, when I record a Loom, I would hide Claude from my view. People should know. But now even the most experienced developers I work with, they are like, well, I just use Claude for this. I'm like, I don't have to hide it anymore. It's accepted now.
That's true. And then like developers that I speak to, they're also like within their companies are adopting AI as part of the practice. So one strategy is when you do your kind of sprint planning using that Fibonacci sequence that's still escapes me why we use that. But they are assigning tasks like low hanging fruit. So like the one ranked, like the features that are really, really quick to do, they're tasking AI to complete them, which is an interesting way. So like the more complex, you need human intervention, but for like low hanging fruit, change a variable here, create this new component here, like very low hanging fruit, that's becoming adopted, which is interesting.
Yeah, I think so. Do you think, so that's the one, and then you have 2, 3, 5, etc. Do you think, how far do you think it's going to go? Like up until what number do you think AI will be able to do everything autonomously?
It probably depends on how advanced it gets, but like one thing it needs to understand is the context. So you're in a page editing a file, but like, when you're coding something, you have libraries that you're connecting to. There's variables that are referencing another page. Like it has to understand the entire context of your project as a whole. If it has that context, I think it'll go up the number. So it'll reach a 5 eventually. You'll have to kind of do a QA check. The better it gets and the better that we get at prompting, I think it'll get close. And then you'll have that like art director version of a developer where they're going to be architecting the features and just allowing AI to kind of spit it out because they understand what it should be writing. Just the AI will be able to do it quicker.
Right. Yeah, yeah. I'm very like, I keep in mind like the straight line bias, that we all have. We had a ×2, for example, in 2025. So we will have a ×2 every year, but nobody knows if we will plateau or not. And I'm not saying this as someone who's like a skeptic or against AI, and I use it all the time. But I am, I think perhaps cautious again. I'm repeating myself with that word. That's perhaps one of the most important words here is that, especially with social media around, how many people say things like RIP Figma, RIP, or, game changer design is dead, that type of fear creating. Like I'm really the opposite of that. And I think that's perhaps good to keep in mind. Well, that's basically it. I'm not sure where I'm going with this, but I want it to be said.
Yeah, I think the fear is, I think it's just like what people say. I don't think there is a fear in like Figma going away. They're this year they've really kind of were keeping a pulse on what's happening, and then they made the right moves. I don't think they're going anywhere soon. I think they're going to be the software of choice moving forward for designers into 2026. I don't think that's changing with like the MCP work, the Figma Make that's becoming. That's actually really good. The fact that it leverages your design system and creates something that looks exactly what your design system contains, and then it almost looks one-to-one with what we have in our code base. So yeah, I think the different companies are evolving and they're keeping the pulse, and they have to iterate and evolve quickly because things are moving so fast. It's hard to keep up sometimes.
Yeah. Well, that's another thing I want to focus on, like the notion that everything is moving so fast. Does it? Really?
I mean, if I'm harking back to like the image quality, like seeing like, for example, like I've been trying to leverage at the beginning of the year, I was trying to leverage ChatGPT to generate our thumbnails. Didn't
Mm.
land
No.
whatsoever. They are terrible. It doesn't look like the real person because I think it's like a rule. You can't recreate a person.
Mm.
Though Gemini in the last month has just leaps and bounds what ChatGPT was doing. Like they replicates you. You can change like your position, your expression, and it still retains that personhood that you have. And
Mm.
it looks like you. And then it creates really detailed images. Um, so in that sense, I think image creation specifically with AI has gotten better and better. So much
Yeah.
so that like Shutterstock and all those like those like image banks are
Mm.
leveraging those tools because they have to keep up. Because I don't search for stock imagery anymore. I just
No.
generate it with Gemini now.
Yeah. The nano one, the big leap at the end of the year. But the reason I'm asking is,
Mm,
it's something lots of people are saying, like it's hard to keep up. It's moving so fast. But we started the year with large language models, image generators,
mm,
and Claude Code and that kind of stuff. MC. Now it's the end of the year. We still have those things, but they became better. I am using Claude a lot.
mhm,
I used Claude in the beginning of this year and I still do because it's getting better. I think, switching over because something else is slightly better takes you a week to get used to it. But then within that week, the thing you left behind became better. They're all
mm.
catching up to each other. So, my quote unquote stack, because that's a popular social media post to make. Look at my
Correct.
stack. It's very simple. I have one image generator, I have one LLM for, general use, and I have one design tool. And that's basically it. And they will get better. So I do not have any FOMO or fear of missing out feelings about, oh, it's going so fast and what tools should I use? I just think you should use the tools that you can use that are up to a certain standard because you can get the job done that way. Your clients don't really care what tool you use. They just want
Fair.
their product or their thing or their goal achieved, um, yeah, long rant, I know, but I don't think it's changing that fast in terms of new tools, but it is changing fast in a way of the existing tools becoming better.
Yeah, I think that's what I was kind of pointing to. Like there are a plethora of these different tools, Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, etc.
Mhm.
And the thing is that they excel at one particular thing at a period in time. So it's keeping track of like which tools excel in this specific area and trying to
Mhm.
use that tool at the right moment.
Yeah.
Can sometimes feel overwhelming because from one week ChatGPT is better at Ready Code than the next. Claude is kind of the front runner, and then Gemini is the image tool of choice. So it's
Mhm.
about sometimes if you feel like, and if you're trying to keep up with all like the different updates, it could feel overwhelming.
True. That's true. And that's also the thing. I don't think you need to keep up with everything. If there's something really big, it will find its way to you. And I think the best two examples are the one you already mentioned, the cursor, playground slash front end Figma like
Mhm.
editor. Like you are the third or even the fourth or the fifth person telling me, hey, did you see the cursor update? So that's a big one because everyone's talking about it. And then the Gemini image creation is also a big one because also everyone's talking
Yeah.
about it. Look at the thing I made. So those will find their way to you.
Mhm.
And I also remember someone saying something along the lines of, if you are without work and left behind, using a slightly better large language model will not solve your problem because it is not your problem.
Yeah.
So I think that's also something to keep in mind here. Pick your tool, stick to it, become an expert at it, and things will be okay, I think.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Any big, I'm curious, anything that's making you excited for the next year as you kind of look over this year, all
Mhm.
the different tools, all the different projects you work on? What gets you excited about next year?
It's a good, a fun thing to say is that for the first time ever, I purchased a Figma Pro plan,
Ah,
professional, instead of the free plan. I have always been a bit stubborn and almost proud to say that you don't need it. You can do everything you need with the free plan. But now recently I still pulled the trigger and got a pro one because I want to do more Figma MCP to Claude Code experimenting. Mostly because, perhaps my biggest change for 2025 was that at the start of the year, I had like one or two projects where I did some sort of coding. And that was a big step for me. I went from no coding to a little bit of coding for clients. And at the moment, like for the past 6 months or so, literally every project that I do has me in Figma and in the code base. So that's my biggest change. And looking at Figma and then having code next to it, and what type of border radius is over here, and what's the flex gap and all that kind of stuff. I feel like there's something to achieve to make it easier. But I also noticed that Figma and the code base or the design system, they have to align perfectly for the MCP, like the communication to work and to understand each other. And I think that's perhaps a project in and of itself. You cleaning everything up. You come into a project, they've been working for 5 years on a code base. It has tons of, workarounds and quick fixes, and tech debt and that kind of stuff. If you connect it to Figma or MCP, like it just doesn't work. Too many things they have to guess. So I now have everything set up, and next year I'm going to see if I can make it work like perfectly. Like here's the Figma design, it's set up well. Take that frame, put it in that code base, make it work, and then see if I can get it to be, I don't have to touch it anymore. That type of output. So that's something that makes me excited because it's a challenge. And then the question is it easy enough that someone's willing to pay for it to get to that level? Or is the investment to get it set up taking so much time, so much money and effort that it's not worth it to go that way? Is it error prone or not? So that's a big experiment that I'm going to, basically experiment with next year.
That might be exciting for our listeners, actually. Like once you've kind of dabbled and become get really good at it and excel at it, something to share with our audience. I'm sure they'd be excited to see it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a good thing to put on our list. Like, give me a few months, because it's something I would do on the side, when I have a bit of time.
Of course.
And then I'll let you and everyone else know. Yeah. So, and any big goals you achieved this year, like personally, like in career development wise?
Yeah, I think I'm just evolving in terms of like what I'm kind of interested in. I think I started the year as like the ROI of design guy, but I think what that is kind of some kind of reflection, self-realization. I think I'm evolving into growth and like the new definition of what that is. So not product-led growth specifically, but I'm just really interested in the strategy around like having users adopt features. Like what are the different mechanisms and tricks to take the features that we're releasing and then having people get quickly to value as quick as possible. So I think I'm going to do a lot of experimentation next year in kind of the growth area. And I'm excited to kind of see where that takes me.
Interesting. So, and then we're talking mostly about your day job, right? Or is it the ROI design guy that's more of your side hustling, LinkedIn content and kind of stuff?
Yeah, I think everything is going to evolve together. I think both like my personal website, my newsletter will evolve with me at the same time on the job as well.
Interesting. Yeah, of course. I mean, they're not two separate things. Like the things you learn on the day job is something you can talk about on LinkedIn and the other way around too. For me, in terms of goals, I'm thinking about niching down more. I've been reading some books, interesting things. I've always had the fear, lots of people do, that I have to do everything to capture as much work and projects and income as I can. But now I'm really zooming out. I have a 1 to 5 scorecard for clients. And then if I look at the 5 being like my favorite clients or my favorite projects, they're all the same type of work. And I know if I can have like 5 of those in a year, which I already do, that means that I can probably get 5 new ones next year, in addition, to replace some of the like 1 or 2 score projects that I didn't really like. And that requires me niching down, and it's probably going to be around, I'm curious what you think about the name, because I think it's a bit long maybe, but because I like design, I like building, and I like strategy. So the label could be strategic design engineer.
I like
it. It's a bit long, I think.
It's a mouthful, but
it's a mouthful. Yeah.
I understand it when you say it out loud.
Okay.
It resonates with me.
To know. Yeah. So you get it. That's important, because in my favorite projects, I am the only designer there, and I'm helping a startup go from 1 to 100. There's something there. They've done everything themselves so far. So I'm cleaning up important parts of the project, the onboarding, the important flows, how to get users from trial to subscription, that kind of stuff. I'm building, I'm designing, I'm doing SEO in the code, that kind of stuff. And that's something that really, it speaks to the gamer inside of me. Like I enjoy the civilization type games, the strategy games, build a warehouse there, get more, a stone or clay in there, and that kind of stuff. Make people happy in the village. And that works with with building a startup as well. So yeah, I'm playing with this idea of becoming like strategic design engineer for startups, going from 1 to 100. The sentence becomes longer, but you have to niche down, you have to be specific.
I think it totally makes sense for you. It sounds like that's where I think you'd really excel at it. And also that's just where the startup world is starting to evolve in, like wear multiple hats. But when you're wearing the hats, you need to be good at the different hats you're doing. But I think over time, you start, for lack of a better word, you fill out those hats very nicely.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is the first time I'm telling anyone about the strategic design engineering. So good to hear your feedback on it. Thanks for that.
Yeah, I think it's a good move.
Nice, right? Any final things, like big takeaways that we didn't talk about yet for 2025? I think listeners should know.
Here's the message I give. It's the end of the year, and I think designers in general, I saw a little stat, it's been floating around for the last month or two, that designers, which job role has the most stress or burnout? And I think designers landed at the top of the list. I don't know if you've seen those polls recently, but here's my comforting message to all the designers. You did well. Okay. We are our harshest critics, and we live in a space where we don't often get a lot of validation, but just know that this year you did well, and next year you're going to do even better.
Yeah. That's a very comforting thing to say. So
it's true.
Yeah. You almost have me in tears there.
There you go.
Yeah.
That was a great episode. So if you like this content and want to hear more, please like and subscribe.
Yeah. And if you want to see more, please go to designtablepodcast.com, Spotify, Apple Music, all the big players.